And because Mr. Cuddles got the question right in the Discord, the question that I ask every week, and whoever gets it right first gets to pick this week's lore, Mr. Cuddles chose Deacon from Fallout 4, so we're finally breaking away from the theme of Fallout 3. And I'm kind of surprised we hadn't done Deacon before, but Deacon, his real name is unknown. He is an agent of the Railroad in the Commonwealth in the year of 2287. Not much is known about his backstory, and he will readily admit to lying about his past. He claims to be one of the first Gen 3 synths to be liberated, and then helped found the Railroad sometime in the 2210s. All of this is false. Now, I thought Deacon, before I went into this, I genuinely thought Deacon was a synth. I don't know why. I never used him as a companion. I guess he tells you at some point he's a synth. And I just believed him and went, okay, why would you lie about that? His entry on the wiki says human. It says that he's skin and flesh and bone and real and not a toaster. So I don't know why you would lie about this. And this kind of leads, I'll get into it a little more later. This kind of leads into my problems with Deacon and how, he's kind of based himself off of lying. And I get it makes sense because he's a spy that he would lie and lie and lie and lie and lie like a rug. But like at the same time, I want this dude as my companion. I want to know about you. Tell me about you. Also, I know that you can tell that that's a lie because there's a story from him that I'll be reading directly off the wiki a little later. It was one of those that like his entry kind of touched upon it a little bit, but not enough. And I went to another article on the wiki, another page on the wiki, and it was enough, but I just kind of wanted to read it verbatim just to kind of give the whole experience and feel of it. Oh, also, I have written down here, if I'm reading the wiki correctly, the railroad was not invented until the 2220s, and definitely by 2229 with the Broken Mask incident. Now, the Broken Mask incident is the first kind of interaction between I believe it's Gen 3 synths. Let me double check. It's not saying on the wiki that it's Gen 3 synths, but the gist of it is the Broken Mask incident was a sudden outburst of violence perpetrated by Diamond City visitor Mr. Carter against individuals around the Market Bar in May of 2229. Now, the game doesn't directly give you, I even Googled it, I checked different sites, it doesn't give you a direct date of when the railroad was started, but it was started by 2229. So him saying that it started in the 2210s makes zero sense. And he also claims that Desdemona is just the figurehead and not the actual leader, and that he is. Most of the railroad doesn't know much about Deacon himself, and Desdemona claims that him and John D are the same person. Now, John D, I'm just going to read this directly because it's 2 quick paragraphs off the wiki. I get all my lore off of fallout.fandom.com. It says in November of 2266, he was the sole survivor, John D, was the sole survivor of a raid on the railroad's headquarters. Wyatt cites him as a major force in the group's subsequent reorganization. His recruitment methods provided to be the basis of the railroad's pyramid structure. Pyramid scheme, hell yeah. And he is credited with the development of their dead drop system. Records left by Pinky Thomas make no mention of his fate following the 2273 Institute ambush that killed Wyatt. However, Desdemona privately suggests that he survived and now goes under the alias of Deacon. Now, all of this, doesn't make sense to me, and none of that makes sense to me just because of the next part I'm about to read. Deacon was part of something called the University Point Death Clause, which was a gang. And this is the story that I was saying earlier that I'd like to just kind of read verbatim off the wiki. So the University Point Death Clause, the background, this is referencing, even just going to their wiki page just brings up Deacon first thing. First, 4 words. As a youth, Deacon was a member of the University Point Death Clause, a gang that harassed Q synths. Their antagonism escalated to the lynching of a young man suspected of being a Gen 3 synth. Shaken by his part in the murder, Deacon left the gang and settled down as a farmer. Sometime later, he married a woman named Barbara. They intended to start a family, but the University Point death claws reemerged and attacked the farm. The gang had learned, to both Deacon and Barbara's surprise, that Barbara was a synth. Enraged by her execution, Deacon butchered the gang in a bloodthirsty haze. There's a reference down here. There's actually a couple of them. I'll read both of them. The sole survivor can say, "We all make mistakes when you're young." Deacon will reply with, "A mistake or two, yeah, but what I did, I ran with a gang in University Point. We called ourselves the Up Death Claws, I'm going to say. It's the UP Death Claws. For kicks, we terrorize anyone that we thought was a synth. We'd keep egging each other on. Started with some property damage, graduated to some beatdowns, then inevitably a lynching. The Claws leader was convinced we finally found and killed a synth. Looking back, I'm not so sure." This is another piece of dialogue that the sole survivor can say, "I'll withhold judgment until you finish." Deacon says, "Thanks. So I turned my back on my brothers, broke all contact. Time passed. I became a farmer, if you can believe that. Then one day I found someone. She saw something in me that I didn't know was there. Barbara. Well, she just was." Sole survivor can say, "Leaving the death claws took a lot of courage," and Deacon will reply with, "Leaving wasn't free. They took it out on..." Deacon will reply with, "Leaving wasn't free. They took it out on my sad hide." I don't like the way that's worded. "But by the time I met Barbara, they'd moved on. We were trying for kids, eking out a living, and then one day, turns out my Barbara, she was a synth. She didn't know that. I certainly didn't. I didn't know that the death claws had found out. But there was blood. I don't remember much clearly after that. I know I killed most of the claws. Must have made a big impression." So, is that real? Does that have anything to really do with... Did he make that up? Is this a Lanius situation where nobody knows if Lanius really did murder the Hydebarks, or was he part of the Legion from a young age and was a slave and grew up, or what have you? Later, he would be contacted by the railroad because of what he did to the University Point death claws. The railroad had no idea of his past affiliation to them. Though he thought he was unworthy, he decided to dedicate himself to the cause. Because of who he is, there's no way to prove any of this. And that's what's kind of frustrating about this, is like, I've referenced Lanius just a second ago. Lanius is supposed to be a myth. Lanius is propaganda. He's walking propaganda. They couldn't stop him. His name alone sends a shiver down the spines of men. Like, Deacon's just a guy who changes his hairdo every so often. And isn't a synth, but claims to be one. Like, it doesn't have the same impact. He's not known as, like, the butcher of the railroad. He's just a guy who works for them. Sometime before December of 2273, he took the name Deacon. Pinky Thompson helped him escape from another Institute raid, which I referenced earlier, and by 2287, he is one of Desdemona's top men. He helps with escorting high-value synths to the railroad, and mostly does covert missions for the railroad. Neat. There's some cool stuff about him that I'll get into, like how you can see him before you ever even meet the railroad. He shows up a couple of times. He's involved with the Quest Tradecraft, Principles of War, Rocket's Red Glare, the Nuclear Option, and Tactical Thinking, End of the Line. So, some quick notes and fun facts about him. Passing persuasion checks during Deacon's affinity conversation reveals that many of the things he tells the player character are lies. Some examples being, Deacon will say, "I lied. I do that." Another one will be, the sole survivor will go, "You founded the railroad?" And Deacon will say, "Sure, me and Johnny D. and Watts. Hell, that was 60, 70 years ago. After a while, you lose count." Soul Survivor can respond with, "You really think that I'm going to fall for this?" And he'll say, "Fall for what? Haven't you noticed when I say the word, Desdemona does a 180? Now, it doesn't have his age on the wiki, but he doesn't look to be very old. I would say he's like anywhere from like 30 to 37. Another thing he will say is the sole survivor will say, "Is this the part where you admit this is a lie and try teaching me some stupid lesson?" Deacon, I deserve that, but no. That's the end of the story. So, like I said before, prior to contacting the railroad, the sole survivor may come across Deacon working incognito in some major settlements. Deacon will alter his appearance while following the player character around the Commonwealth. The only constant in his disguise is the sunglasses, which he never removes. He has some fixed disguises for certain places. He's present for the argument between Piper and Mayor McDonough, disguised as a Diamond City security. He is found wandering around Good Neighbor, disguised as a drifter, and later joining in Hancock's speech about the Institute. He can also be found in one of the pods at the Memory Den. He may be spotted at Bunker Hill, disguised as a caravaner. When spoken to in these disguises, Deacon will often have unique dialogue that differs from the disguise used by the other unnamed NPCs. There's a chance for one of Deacon's disguises to just be him wearing nothing but a leather leg piece, a left leather leg piece. So is he just naked? Is he just in his underwear? Deacon is marked essential. He's marked essential, but if you don't choose him, if you don't choose the railroad and you wind up destroying them, he turns on you and can be killed. Because I know that because I did that. Because I had him at my base because I was going to take him eventually, and I didn't because I killed him. Deacon is marked as essential for all the above disguises. If cheats or mods are used to kill him in any of these disguises before you reach the railroad, Deacon will be alive during the road to freedom and will act as if nothing happened. This is because all of the disguises are technically considered different characters in the game. His natural hair color is ginger, and that could be found by using the modify look command. He also claims to have visited the Capital Wasteland. He mentioned how the Brotherhood of Steel wasn't so bad prior to Maxon's ascension to Elder, as well as how the water there is drinkable, referencing Project Purity. Now, that would have been really cool to follow up with, like, we found Zimmer, we found a synth, we went to Rivet City. Deacon's dialogue contains a nod to previous Fallout games. These include suggesting Code Violet as a team name, part of Harkness's override code in Fallout 3, attempting to use what he says in Robert House's personal override codes on Deezer. He claims to have won in a poker game. And joking that he wants to convince a new recruit that he's actually John Henry Eden. So just more Fallout stuff and a little New Vegas stuff thrown in there, which is cool. Deacon appears to have a fear of heights because he makes negative comments when brought to elevated locations such as Trinity Tower. Neat. The only person I can think that in a video game that has a fear of heights is Abby from The Last of Us 2. At one point in 2275, Deacon was kicked out of HQ by former leader Pinky Thompson because he was sick of the lying, face-changing son of a bitch after Deacon had spent a month as a ghoul, which freaked out a lot of people. So I guess if he could change his face, he could make himself look younger, but still. So here's just a behind-the-scenes thing on the wiki. It says, a deacon is a low-ranking minister position in many Christian churches. Their duties often include, but are not limited to, day-to-day clerical work, charitable work, and recruitment and education of new church members. So I guess that kind of fits with who he is, in a sense. That's Deacon. That's the face-changing man that everybody loves. I think women really like Deacon. I don't know why. I can't prove it. It's just one of those things. You ever just like I don't trust Will Smith. And I don't know why. I just don't. Like, I watched The Fresh Prince growing up. I listened to some of The Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff and The Fresh Prince. I listened to some of that. Some of it's all right. Some of it's cool. I don't trust Will Smith. I don't know what it is. I just don't. I don't trust Deacon. I can't prove that he's untrustworthy or what have you. I just do not trust him. I think that's lore. I think that's lore for this week. Thank you, Mr. Cuddles. If you want to hear a certain bit of lore, make sure you're in the Discord. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, I will be asking a question. First person to get the question right gets to pick lore for the week.